Hello YouTube, welcome back to the channel. So recording a little bit of a preamble to this one. So this is a nice conversation that I was able to have with MikeO of the channel MikeO. And we were able to kind of put this together and set it up. I'm doing a little bit of a preamble because I wanted to give you a little bit of fair warning. There is a section of the conversation where there was a little bit of an audio issue. I was picking it up on my end. I wanted to, it became a little bit worse during one part of the conversation, and I just let Mike know, and we were able to figure out what the fix was on it, and then we were able to resolve it. So when you get to that part of the conversation, I know there's a little bit of background noise, unfortunately, but you should be able to still hear what Mike is saying pretty clearly, and you can, I think, hear myself as well. So just bear with it. It does clear up once we figure out how to fix the problem. We were able to resolve it, and I think the rest of the conversation went out without any issues. Overall, a great conversation, and thanks again to Mike for being able to make it work, and to be able to participate, and we had a great conversation. I enjoyed it, and hopefully we'll get a chance to do it again down the road here. Anyway, so that's it for me in the intro. Hopefully you enjoy it. Like if you like the video, subscribe to the channel. You'll get the little outro at the end, and no other words from me other than the discussion itself, which is going to start right now. All right. Hello, YouTube. So doing this pre-recorded style because I'm trying to decide which one of us is going to be able to bring more energy. I'm trying to beef up on my caffeine right now as I speak, and it might not help. Might not be enough. But long overdue because I do watch his channel and I enjoy it. So here is Mike O. Mike, how's it going?
It's going well. What's going on, Carlos? Appreciate you having me on your show.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, I do very much enjoy kind of what you bring to the table. I do enjoy watching the videos because you do take a good collector-centric take, and I'm always appreciative of that. That's always a fun thing. And you are definitely a pillar of the community in terms of being kind of there. And we were chatting a little bit beforehand, kind of on the national and everything. And I'll talk about that a little bit. Not about this past national, because Lord knows that horse has been beaten to death and turned into glue at this point. But kind of forward thinking a little bit, kind of forward thinking in future as well, kind of playing off the lessons learned from this one and maybe that going forward. But part of the reason I want to chat with you a little bit is because you are one of the slowly dying breed of the proper player team collectors, I should say. Because we got the player collectors, we know those. I am familiar with that one. That world I am familiar with. The set collectors, I am familiar with that a little bit as well, although that is a bit of a dying breed. But the team collectors and the Phillies have a long-standing history. It's not like it's not like a lot of these teams that came up five. It's not the Arizona Diamondbacks team collecting. It's not quite the same thing.
Been around a little bit longer than the Arizona Diamondbacks for sure.
A little bit, a little bit.
Little bit. They span essentially the entire history of Major League Baseball, so that makes it fun. There's plenty to choose from, and no matter how much you pay attention and how hard you try, you kind of always finding more stuff. So that makes it a lot of fun for sure.
Mm-hmm. Now, part of the reason I wanted to kind of talk to you about that is because of that long-standing history and because of all that going back. And I mentioned to you earlier that I was previously part of an organization called OBC, which, Legends Never Die is actually part of. He has made reference to it. But I also knew a Phillies collector from that as well, who also was collecting a lot of the Phillies run, and obviously long history and everything. That covers a lot of ground. But what I'm kind of curious about is when it comes to team collecting. I know from the player collecting perspective, it got trickier and trickier once the one of one became, a thing. But as a team collector, obviously you can kind of play around with the themes. You can play around with like what qualifies and what doesn't qualify. But when you got a team that has such a long-standing history, so many brands, so many options, going back all the way into the pre-war days, as you go along, number one, do you put any limitations on it? Do you organize it in a certain way? Like, obviously, you're starting off with this big potential list. If you wanted to design it, how do you figure out which direction to go and how to decide what to target and go after?
I think for me, I just kind of bounce around all over the place to a degree, bounce into different things, right? You kind of start out as a kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you collecting some of your favorite team, and you got the little tiny binders that they used to make. They have like the cheap vinyl pages and stuff. You have your 1990 Fleer team set in there, stuff like that, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
grow up and you keep collecting, you save, you break stuff, save the Phillies, maybe build some team sets, go from there, and then you kind of evolve and start going after some of the bigger cards, and then you go back in time, and of course, there's consistently new stuff released as well. So I think that obviously is always changing and evolving for sure. In terms of storage and keeping things organized as best as possible, every now and then you've got to do some reorganization. Maybe sometimes you got to stack some stuff up that mixes up and then file it away a little bit here and there. But I for sure try and keep, slabs in one area, raw in another area. Um, you have the new stuff together, you have the vintage stuff together, pre-war stuff together. Um, and I store stuff in all sorts of ways. I collect raw and graded stuff. I have cards in binders. I have cards in top loaders. Every now and then you break out the magnetic. So I am kind of all over the place, and that's sort of the way I collect as a whole,
Mhm.
and certainly team wise as well. But with so many products, of course, as new products come out, you do have to pick and choose kind of from product to product what
Mhm.
you're going to pursue, what you're going to collect. So it's just fun to see what comes out. It's fun when a new checklist, when you team collect, a new checklist comes out. You're not necessarily just looking at the hits.
Mhm.
You're not looking at maybe the quality of what big rookies are in there. You're kind of looking, hey, which players maybe have an autograph in this product that haven't been released in a while, or maybe it's their first autograph. What kind of parallels, refractors, does that do something for me? Do I just want maybe one single example from that set, or do I want to try and maybe do an entire run of a certain color refractor, or maybe a base refractor, or maybe just stick to the base cards? It can just kind of vary from product to product.
No, that's perfect. That's kind of leading into kind of the because when you've got such a big checklist, and like I said, at a scaled down level, I do this with the player collecting as well because initially the idea was, oh, I'd like to collect everything, and then one of ones came and ruined that. So that at that point, that's a no go. So at that stage, you got to decide, okay, how much do I want to scale back? You know you can't get everything, so now like that's out completely. So how do you adjust? Do you want to stick to playing days? Do you want to stick to new and playing days, a mix? Maybe you do playing days, but then new, you pick and choose. To your point, like you don't try to get everything. You just say like, okay, look, is it cool? Do I like it? If the answer is yes, maybe that's interesting to me. Maybe you do a run of it. To your point, you do a rainbow of this, but then this other one, you just grab one example and I'm satisfied. And it just kind of varies in how you want to approach it. But with such a big checklist, then yes, that's kind of why I was curious because you could literally go as you could make this as difficult or as straightforward as you want. You just want an example from the different players in a certain set. Great, you're done. You want to collect a rainbow of each one. Obviously, that would make it more complex. So you could make it that crazy. Now, in that same vein, though, to your point, you kind of do move back and forth. You're going and you're looking at stuff. You can go brand new. You can go vintage. You can go pre-war. Like there's a whole swath of stuff. Is there anything you favor? Like, is there any direction that usually you'll like? Let's say there's a bunch of new stuff that's kind of cool, but then maybe some pre-war that's kind of interesting comes up as well, or maybe you see an opportunity. Do you kind of go in that direction, or do you go in this direction, or you try to mix a little bit of both?
Well, I certainly mix a little bit of everything. I will say I definitely go through phases. I went through, so I, at a certain point, it just dawned on me, and I said, you know what? Why would I not do? I have several team sets, obviously, from over the years, from my youth and recent years, and of the Topps flagship sets. And I said to myself, that'd be a pretty cool project. Why not build the entire Topps team set of Phillies cards? What I called for myself, Ultimate Phillies Topps team set,
Mm-hmm.
and just start with the base cards in every set, which of course for years that's the way it was. And I did count the high number short prints as regular base cards,
Okay.
which obviously little more difficult to track down in the early 50s and such. So I kind of worked on that. And when I was doing that, I was super hyper focused on the vintage. I completed that run outside of a handful of rather new ultra short prints and super short prints. I still need a handful of those, but every base card from 51 tops through 2022 top series 2, I
Mm-hmm.
have those are stored in a binder. It doesn't matter if it's a 10-cent Larry Anderson card or a 52 high number card that might cost you a couple $100, even a Mike Schmidt rookie. Like those are all in over the course of 4 binders. So
Mm-hmm.
I was definitely heavy in the vintage at that point because that was a lot of what I needed. And some of them were more difficult to track down than others. Right now, of course, I am looking as new products come out, and they're coming out rather slowly because, of course, everything's behind. I mean, you look at this year's baseball products. I mean, there's so many that haven't come out. It's outrageous how many are going to be coming out following the season. I
It's
mean,
not even just baseball though. I've
oh,
had a little bit of fun on the channel teasing a guy Billy Celia who works at Upper Deck because I'll collect some of the wrestling cards. They're so backed up that the 2022 set is about to come out, and the next set that was supposed to come out for 2021 still hasn't come out. And the next one is supposed to be the month after. So there's a good chance the last one of 2021 will come out about a month before the 2022 set is scheduled to come out.
It's crazy. I know with Panini with the football stuff, I don't think Select has come out.
Mm-hmm.
I know Optic just was released in the
Mm-hmm.
last several weeks, and it's
Yep.
like preseason's here for 2022, and I think maybe the first 2022 set. I think Prestige just came out, so
Quick kind of a side thought.
everything's backed up.
Quick kind of a side thought. I don't want to tangent off of it, but it's since you brought it up though, it kind of left me a thought here, and just want to get your take on this. One of the things that I think about when this happens, this specific thing, obviously it's a unique situation. We grant it, fair enough. But the manufacturers don't actually manufacture anymore. All the manufacturers in question, most of them work with various printers. Upper Deck does that. Panini does that. Topps does that. Topps doesn't own their printing facilities. They don't. So they're at the mercy, really, of what they have available and everything. And sometimes multiple manufacturers work with the same, printing companies that are printing the various companies' stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it creates this pinch point. Do you think though would it have made any difference if any of these manufacturers actually had their own in-house manufacturing and actually had a little bit more control over it? Would that have changed some of this game?
I mean, I suppose they could prioritize
Their own
certain
stuff.
products,
Yeah.
yeah, of course their own lines, but then maybe certain lines they'd want to get out a little quicker than others. I don't know, but it is definitely a little frustrating, and you will hear people say, "Oh, come on, Tops," and I'm like, well, I mean, Panini, Upper Deck, like they're all having the same issue, of course. Um, so it's interesting. It's weird. I kind of like last year, I was like, well, hopefully it'll be better next year. And it's actually, I think, worse this year than it was last year.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like they're far more backed up. Like I look at baseball and I'm like, not that many products have been released this year.
Mm-hmm.
Like there just haven't been stuff like Stadium Club, like none of that stuff is out. I mean, I'd have to bring up the list, but it's like 25, 30 products that are still going to come out in October, November, December. It's just absolutely nuts.
Yeah. I just thought it was kind of funny because I remembered, and I'll bring it up from time to time. I'll throw it out because people, if you really listen, sometimes the manufacturers will say some of these things. They'll say it out loud. The president of Upper Deck was on a podcast at the end of 2020. I believe it was the end of 2020. And he flat out said, it's going to be years before we expect our product lineup to start rolling out at the normal cadence. And he said that at the end of 2020. Roll through 2021, 2022, that has proven to be prophetic. He goes, because he flat out said back then, even without knowing what would come after, he goes, it's going to be years before we really expect us to get back in line. And they're just one manufacturer. And if a lot of the manufacturers are using similar resources, it comes down to logistics, right? It's who's printing the stuff and it's sending out the stuff. And if they got a problem, everybody's got a problem. Nobody's immune.
Yeah, a couple hundred sets, and it's not like these places are doing nothing but printing these trading cards. I'm sure they have other projects going on and supplies, and it will be nice when it gets back to normal someday, sometime. I'm sure we'll be back there, but I guess we'll have to just be patient and see.
No, that's fair. I agree with that. Just wanted to take a little side conversation because it's one of those things I kind of like monitoring on the side because I will hear like folks' like frustration about it. It's legitimate, but at the same time, it's like if you know anything about manufacturing, the fact that you put all the reliance on these printers, that's your pinch point. And if they got a problem, everybody's got a problem because multiple of them are using the same guys, and that's usually what happens.
Yeah, and we're going to see players in incorrect uniforms in products for quite a while, which, is part of that delayed process. We're just going to keep seeing it. Plenty of, Juan Soto collectors. If you still want some cards in the Nationals uniform, you'll have a chance to get them for a little while still. I'm sure those premium chrome products will be, coming out in October, November, December, hell, maybe even January and February.
We have to rely on Tops now. If you want the traded, you have to go straight to the Tops now in order to get the.
That is really the way, because they've been delayed. Like in the last few years, I've noticed like Tops Update used to be guys who got traded at the deadline would be in Tops Update. Like that no longer happens anymore. Their new uniform card is either a Tops Now card or the following year's release, Series 1 or sometimes even Series 2. So. And the chrome products are far further behind than the paper.
Well, I like to think they're many years behind because they're still trying to figure out how to do etching.
We hear about that.
That's a little poke for a very specific person who's really into the etching. Just one. Panini does etching, by the way. Panini does etching. Just get the Panini cards. It's fine. They do etching. Um, but I have to poke my fun. But no, I agree with you. Like I'm 100% on board with that. But it's just kind of interesting the way that play. But I guess it does, to your point, it does create a bit of that weird dynamic. Now, here's kind of a question that still leans back into the team collecting thing. So if you were a Nationals team collector, so is that still like obviously he's in uniform? Would something like that still count if a player got traded a while ago, and he's very clearly in the Philadelphia Phillies uniform in this case, and like he's literally traded, he's still playing for another team. I can watch him on TV playing for another team, and then even months and months later, the sets are still saying, does that still count as part of the Phillies PC? Like, are you still good with that as being part of the set, or do you kind of separate it, or just keep it as part of it since he's technically in uniform?
I mean, I think that I'm sure it's a collector to collector type of scenario,
Mm-hmm.
and even player to player. Like for me, so 2021 Topps Chrome Platinum Anniversary, fairly recently released,
Yep.
even though 2022, it's just like we just talked about, got sets way behind. That is a set where I created a spreadsheet, and I'm not going to realistically ever do the rainbow of every single card.
Mm-hmm.
But there are certain players I'd like to do as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a spreadsheet of the entire run for the Phillies.
Mm-hmm.
Certain legendary players working on, and I will actively shop for. There's other players, a guy like Archie Bradley, relief pitcher, was there for 1 year. Clearly not on the team this year. He's got a card in there. If it's part of a lot, sure, I'll get it and I'll mark it down and I'll keep it, but I'm not going to actively look for it.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of a star player, I think it just depends on the scenario. I guess if you're a Nationals fan, I mean, I don't know because I'm not a Nationals fan.
Sure.
I don't know how you feel about Juan Soto. Are you more disgusted with the franchise? Because, this has become a trend. I mean, you've seen the World Series team be torn apart. You saw Rendon leave, which was probably good for the Nationals. That clearly wouldn't have been a good signing with the way things are going. But Max Scherzer, even though he's older, still on top of his game. Trey Turner, still young. Bryce Harper, they let him walk. Soto now traded. I feel like if that were the Phillies, I would still collect the Sotos and kind of hold on to those memories, be disappointed that he's gone. But it depends. I know, you've had players who leave on bad terms sometimes, very bad terms. Maybe you're like, I don't really particularly want that one. But,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm collecting Phillies cards, I want the guys in their Phillies uniform. That doesn't mean I won't collect a player when they move on, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
Like when Scott Rowland is in products, if it's a cool looking card and he's in a Cardinals uniform, I might still pick it up.
Okay.
But I don't consider it part of the Phillies collection.
Sure.
If he's got a Phillies autograph, I'm going to more likely go towards that. Or Jim Thomey's another guy. Like, I'll pick up some Cleveland cards from time to time. Like, I like Jim Thomey as a player, Hall of Famer. He's really good, obviously, with Cleveland. But if I'm looking from the Phillies perspective, of course, when there's a card of him released, maybe an autograph in some sort of pricey set, you can get him at an affordable price.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to, chase down that Phillies card if I can for the Phillies collection.
No, I think that's fair. It's one of those things where, to your point, and that's the reason why I like getting the philosophy. Really, what it comes down to is it's a philosophy thing. Kind of what we're talking about. The criteria that you choose is based on your preference, your experience. What you prefer one versus another. A couple of the players you named off, some other Philly fan may not be as invested or as interested, but then it means something to you. It works for you and your purpose. I'm a big fan of collect the thing that you want. If it makes sense and it makes you happy, well, then do that. I don't really care what you do otherwise. So, figure it out. Live your life. But everybody's got to figure out what that criteria is going to be, and that's what always makes it a little bit interesting because your answer is going to be different than somebody else's answer, even if you're both collecting Phillies, even if you're starting off with the same baseline. Now, outside of the Phillies collection, I know you do collect a variety of different things. You also enter into a lot of other areas of the hobby, which I'll touch on in a minute. But I'll finish 1 or 2 points on the Phillies thing, and then we'll kind of shift from there. Let me ask you kind of a random team-related question, still in the same vein. So you've got the history of the Phillies kind of captured with a lot of this cardboard. Obviously, that gives you a little bit of an understanding of the history of the team, as well as the teams that you've had the chance to watch. A lot of us have preferences about the teams we got a chance to watch. That's always going to be part of the thing that goes with it. Do you have a favorite Phillies team in your lifetime?
Well, obviously the 2008 team
Mhm.
won the World Series,
Sure,
so they're right there, and they have a ton of fan favorites.
sure.
Um, I mean, Chase Utley, absolute fan favorite. Hated by some fans in other cities,
Hmm.
Mets fans for sure. Um, you know, that team's filled with stars. You had some
There are
guys
allegations that you're
post
wearing a Big Scott thing, a Big Scott shirt that looks like a Mets thing. Are you sure you're not kind of a closet Mets fan?
that is absolutely not true.
Listen,
Definitely not a
listen.
fan.
Big Scott's a nice guy. I've been on his
He
channel. He's a
is.
nice guy. But if I don't care about the Mets one way or the other. But if I wasn't not a Mets fan, it's like I'm sorry, I'm not wearing your damn shirt. Change the color scheme, maybe I'll think about it. But like, no, no,
I
no.
I gave him a hard time at the national, maybe like 3, 4, 5 times. I'm like,
Hmm.
it's absolutely Mets colors, but I'll wear it for you.
All
I'll wear
right,
it for you at least once. So
all right. You're a better man than I. I would have made him cut a check on the spot, and I take a picture of me taking the check. It's like, hand it over, buddy. I'll think about it, but hand it over. But kudos to you then. But
But that '08 team, of course, World Series, ton of memories, going to postseason games, watching
mhm,
games, family and friends and such. But the childhood one that sticks out is the '93 Phillies.
mhm.
Again, cast of characters, kind of just one of those charming teams that everything came together at once. You actually have a collection of really good players,
Yep.
not superstars. I mean, Kurt Schilling, you could argue, obviously has a chance to be a Hall of Famer at some point. Other than
Yeah.
that, a lot of guys who had really good careers and they just gelled and had career years that year, um, and went on a run where expectations were super low. They had a obviously great run, ended in tears for me. Toronto Blue Jays, obviously taking them
93,
out
90.
there,
I don't know what you're talking about. 93 worked out great for me.
but
It was great. It was great. I don't know what you're referring to. I watched that series. It was wonderful. 92 and 93, it worked out great. Great.
for some it certainly did. But no, that team is a lot of fun, and
It was a good
obviously,
team. It was
I
a good
mean,
team.
I was 11 years old,
Mhm.
so like that was great timing there as well. And I just always think that '93 team, like the cast of characters, like
Yeah.
they could make some little docu series about that. I think you could make interesting TV with some
I
of the
agree with that.
characters on there. You've got guys like John Kruk who are characters in their own,
Mhm.
just a bunch of interesting individuals. I mean, hell, you could make a documentary on Lenny Dykstra. It'd be fascinating. I'm not saying he's a upstanding individual, but doesn't mean he's not a interesting character. So those are probably the two teams that really stand out the most. Obviously, there've been some good teams over the years, and there's been a lot of players in between. I love learning about the history, of course, but
Mhm.
those are the two teams that I watched. And when I see a card from a player on those teams, it definitely is some motivation to pick it up or to look into potentially picking up or what cards might be available in different sets.
Mhm. No, I completely agree, and I 100% agree with you. Like I said, I tease about the '93 series because obviously it was good for me, and we're right in the same age range. So I was watching those games, and I had a great time watching them. And that Phillies team was really good, like legitimately very much a challenge. But both teams, it was a very good matchup. To be honest, those teams were both excellent that year, which made it fun. And when it's a good competitive series and both teams are really good and they've got great players on both teams, that makes it kind of fun. But it's always interesting to see kind of what teams fall outside of it. The '93 Phillies team fits very well into it. Obviously, you got a World Series team that you can remember and think back to a little bit later on in your life, so you can think vividly to the experience of that. Uh, the one disadvantage of the '92 and '93 is that I was 9 and 10 years old when that series happened, so I was able to remember and enjoy it. I remember those series both very well. But you're young enough where like enough time goes by, and this is kind of where I had a little bit of fun because the Jays were a little bit more of a good team, but never a great team for the majority of the run thereafter because they struggled. They didn't make the playoffs for 20 years plus, and it was one of those things. They were never terrible. They never like they basically didn't bottom out. They'd be like third, fourth place. They were okay. They were pretty right around 500. Give it. I used to joke they're between about 75 and 85 wins, almost every year. So it's like not terrible, but you're not making the playoffs with that. And the Yankee powerhouse team was there the whole time, kind of keeping them at bay. But it went from '93 all the way to 2015 before they made the playoffs again. So I was 10 years old. They won the World Series, didn't make the playoffs again, through into high school, into university, past university, into adult. I'm 32 years old, and they finally make the playoffs. Forget about everything else. So for me, that 2015 team was a lot of fun for me watching the whole playoff run. It's like, oh my god, it's been so long. They had those little playoff hat, postseason hats. I was like, you know what? I'll buy one of those stupid postseason hats. It's been so long since they made a playoff. They played a playoff game. Meaningful baseball in October. What is this?
Yeah, well, when you get a team that reaches the postseason and you get that hype of postseason after such a long layoff, it definitely brings it brings out that excitement and
Yeah.
makes it memorable. Even like '07 when the Phillies made the playoffs, they came from behind. They were like 6, 7 games behind the Mets with 17 to play. Came back, won the division. They ended up getting swept out. To the Rockies were on fire that year and ended up sweeping everyone until they met the Red Sox in the World Series. They had a crazy September, but like I just remember when that first playoff game, so it was like they were out of the postseason from '94 through 2006. So it was like it's only 12 years. I mean, obviously teams go through much longer runs, but
I've seen that before. Yeah, I've seen
it,
that.
but it's one of those like it's like geez, it's just crazy to see them back at it. And well, they've been on another lengthy drought now, which is hard to believe with how good they were from '07 to '11. But we're going on 11 years of no postseason baseball. This year, it looks like things are changing. We will see. They're in a good position. So, maybe I'll get to see a little postseason baseball again this year.
That's fair. I think that's good. So let me kind of start pivoting over into baseball a little bit, and then I'll adjust it to a couple of other things. So let me ask you kind of this question. Obviously, baseball guy. I'm still a baseball fan, but I make a distinction. I am a baseball fan. I'm not necessarily a Major League Baseball fan. I struggle to watch the Major League Baseball product. You asked me to go watch, a double A or a triple A, I'm all for it. Let's do it because I still love the game. I enjoy the game. Major League Baseball is sometimes a little hit and miss for me. It's a struggle. Part of it is because of the local team. Because in reality, the Dome is a very boring place to watch baseball, and I've watched literally hundreds of games at the Dome. It's cookie cutter and straightforward. They've done some things to make it a little bit nicer, but it is what it is. It's the experience is not great. But at the same time, like Major League Baseball by its structure, and one thing that personally I've never enjoyed, I don't like going to the stadium and watching commercials. I don't enjoy like just sitting there. It's like I paid for the privilege of watching commercials on the screen while you guys are throwing the ball around. You could literally be playing. There's no flow to this. It's a personal. I'm just uttering my personal opinion. As a baseball fan, though, are you enjoying the current presentation of the game still? Less so? About the same? Like, is there any difference for you?
I mean, I think you get older and you're busier and you get more distracted.
Sure.
Like, at least that's the way I feel. But I personally enjoy the game and I watch it as much as I can. I watch the Phillies, virtually every day. I mean, if for some reason I'm unavailable, obviously I'm following it. I mean, the nice thing nowadays, you get these fancy cell phones and you can literally follow pitch by pitch. You can listen via the radio, you can watch stuff. But I'm a fan of the sport as a whole. Um, I mean, obviously, oftentimes I hear criticism about it. I will say I've been to less games in the last few years than I typically would.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we had 2020, no access. Last year, I actually only got to one game, and this year I've only been to one game. Well, last year I did go to two games, one Phillies and one at Wrigley Field when I was at the National.
Sure.
This year I've only been to one game. I mean, prior to 2020, a light season for me would be 7 to 10 games attending. I mean, there have been years, you go to 30, 40. Granted, when you're younger, sometimes you're got a little more free time, or when you're in college, you have nothing to do and you have access to some really cheap tickets, you might be going to more games. And it's not that I don't enjoy the stadium experience, but it does become more expensive traveling, parking, tickets, admission. I could do without the food there. Of course, everyone likes to enjoy something there, but if you do, I mean, it does get pricey and it gets time consuming. And I have no problem with, like, if I attend a game, I have no problem with it being 3 hours long. The time of game doesn't really bother me. Of course,
Okay.
you have some games that drag out a little longer than you could, but you're still investing like between getting there through traffic before, after the game. I'm not someone who gets to the game, as first pitch is happening, I prefer to get there an hour or two early, be able to wander around the stadium and stuff. So you end up investing 6, 7, 8 hours into trying to go to a game sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what curtails me a little bit from maybe attending as many games. But watching them, I mean, I'll watch the Phillies and I have MLB TV, so I have the double screen. I'll have a game, if I'm not watching because I'm Carlos on YouTube or someone else, I'll pop a game on and I'll bounce around either whether it's, I mean, September, I'm absolutely watching games that
Sure.
matter.
Yeah,
For
the stretch
Phillies,
drive for sure. Yeah.
for sure. Otherwise, sometimes I will pop on the Angels because Otani's pitching and hitting, or another young player. I'll pop on like Kansas City once in a while for the sole purpose. Oh, Bobby Witt, I see he's up, or the Mariners, Luis Rodriguez. So I will try and watch the young players. I make use of MLB Network, and I don't watch maybe Sunday Night Baseball as much as I used to. When I was a kid, it was like, oh, you got to watch Sunday Night Baseball.
It was an
I'll pop it
institution.
on.
I'll tell you, like I really did enjoy making it appointment television. It was a lot of fun to have that game on.
But I do think part of that, and I see the same thing for me with the NFL. You have so much access now. So you think back, you're like, oh, when I was a kid, I used to watch Monday Night Football every week, or I used to watch NFL primetime. And now it's like, not that I wouldn't watch it, but like I have the highlights at my fingertips. I have games at my fingertips. So I think you can say that about every sport. It becomes watered down. Not that the products may be worse, but it's just so available, and you have more options than you've ever had in your life. And as we grow and get older, we have more responsibilities, more stuff going on. We're involved in more things, maybe more financial commitments. So I think by nature of age, maybe it can lose a little bit, but I still love watching the games, as our good friend Wes Griff would say.
Listen, I don't want to listen to advice. This man once touted Doge. I don't want to listen. I don't want to listen. I'm not sure if this is the advice that I want to be getting from somebody. Just saying.
We could do a whole show on the on Mr. Ed there.
Listen, he might call himself Eddie Money, but if you invested in Doge, you're Eddie broke. Okay, it's not working. And yes, we could devote a whole show to it. Believe me, and I would be very tempted to do so, without question, without a doubt. But no, I agree. I think that's fair. Also, I kind of take offense to the notion. Listen, I don't care how old I get. I will not dub responsibility as an excuse for anything I do. It's like, I haven't been responsible to this point. How dare you, sir? I might pay a mortgage, but that doesn't make me responsible. But I agree kind of with that general premise, though. It is interesting because you're right. As we do get older and mature, against our will, like I'm still morally opposed to this very notion. How dare you? I'm still 20 in my mind. I don't care what anybody says. But yeah, we do have more things that are kind of pulling at our time. That's just reality. That's facts. I will struggle to pay attention. Have my undivided attention to the game. The temptation to be like, looking down, unless something interesting is going on in the game. The temptation to be staring at the second screen or stuff like. Even in my office, I have the two screens. So I might be doing something here and then have the game on over to the side and just kind of let it play, and I'll look over and, maybe Soto's gotten a bat. Hold on, let's pay a little attention, and then kind of zip back over and kind of do it a little bit that way. But it's a valid point. I do think that the experience of going to the ballpark, I guess it depends. Like I said, if it becomes a little bit old hat, it hurts. If the stadium experience is kind of good, like to your point, you commit basically a good chunk of time to it. It's hard for me to get away from a 55-inch TV in HD just sitting there, and then I can walk over to the kitchen and grab anything I want and just sit down and just kind of watch it if I want to. It's tough to be like, all right, let me drag myself out to even though I have accessibility right here where I am, I can hop on the little train here and just 35 minutes, and I'm basically right beside the ballpark. Like literally I can just walk over from there and then boom, zip back hence the way I came. But even then, unless you're excited to be there, maybe if the environment's right. Like I've definitely been to games where the environment is bang on, spot on, and it's hard to top that. But I guess it's just going to depend kind of on your experience on what you're looking at, basically what you're watching.
Well, yeah, there's no doubt that the at-home experience for all entertainment has improved over the years. Bigger TVs, sound, access to everything, clarity, like there's so many things you can do. So, I mean, that's another one of those things that competes. I mean, and you can say the same thing, and I guess numbers would show even if you go non-sports, go into movie theaters and such. Still can be an experience to go see certain movies in a theater, but you can also watch it at home. It's a pretty good experience as well. And sports, it's just the reality of, if it's a big game or if it's a treat, going to the game can be a good time. I mean, postseason baseball, like Full House, it is a crazy great experience for sure. And you
Hmm.
can't really replicate that necessarily. Like, I think to Toronto, like if you were there, oh, well, obviously the Joe Carter thing would be a vivid memory. But like I
My
think of
hearing
like,
would not have recovered.
but like Jose Bautista, like when he hit the home run where he threw the
Hmm.
bat,
The
like
bat flip. Yep.
I can see that just being like one of those, like you're there and that's just a locked in like memory that you can't forget. Like that's an experience. But not every game, is going to be like that. And that's one of the interesting things about sports, going and attending a game. You kind of never know what you're going to get. You might get a run of the mill, 5-2 game that's okay, or you could get some kind of crazy classic moment that, you're thinking about 50 years from that point.
I agree with that for sure. I think it's interesting because I didn't have the good fortune to be there for the bat flip game, but I definitely was watching it on TV when that one went down. The Joe Carter one, that I watched it on TV as well. I was there when they did the World Baseball Classic in Canada, and the U.S. was there, and that crowd was fairly raucous. They were definitely into that. You had the international element to it. Obviously, your Team USA was a great team, and then Team Canada was actually a pretty solid squad. And the locals will definitely be very rambunctious in terms of giving the atmosphere. So we had the good atmosphere. When the dome has enough people in it and you get a good atmosphere in it, the decibel level will get there. We'll get to the level that it's like, but it was consistent. It was throughout the game. That wasn't just one specific moment where they exploded. It was like very consistently strong throughout the game, which was a really good environment. It was a really good game to be at. So you will get those games where it's kind of like, yeah, this is kind of fun. It's a different experience. So I agree with that. I think the right venue, right time, right place. I think you can definitely still capture those moments, but they do get a little few and far between, I guess. Also, as you watch more of them, because for me, the playoffs in baseball is still must watch. I can still, like, even though my attention span is hurt over the years, it really has, like, it's suffered miserably. Baseball playoffs, I can still lock in. I can still get it locked in. Even my team's not in, I can, if it's a good series, I can still lock in and observe. Some of the best series I watched, my team wasn't even in. I love the 2011 World Series. That was a crazy series. I love the 2001 World Series because I was rooting against the Yankees. These are moments that I still enjoy. I get, even just rooting against the other team, I can still get some pleasure out of it. See, Arizona Diamondbacks. Like, why do we love the Arizona Diamondbacks more? They beat the Yankees during the dynasty. We love it. This is great. I was rooting for it. I was happy when Luis Gonzalez hit the ball. That's all I'm saying. But it was a great series also. Like, it was actually a classic series. Two
Mm-hmm.
really great teams. And there's another Kurt Schilling moment as well, obviously. And Randy Johnson. Like, you had Hall of Fame players. You had great players, great teams. That Yankee team has just come off winning 3 in a row. Pretty good. They're pretty good. And it was a great series. 2011 was just madness. And that was Pujols, building a Hall of Fame resume, adding to it, and then getting to that next level. But it was a crazy. I thought the Rangers were going to win. They didn't, but I thought they were. Like, it was
They
nuts.
were oh so close.
That's right.
They're a few strikes away
Yeah.
a couple times, but didn't work out for them. But no, yeah, that was a great series. And the baseball playoffs, at least in recent years, it feels like there's just, I mean, of course, now and then you get a dud game,
Mm-hmm.
11-2 game, but most of the time they're pretty close and tight. And it's, you know, a guy could be cruising. It's tight 2-0, 1-0 game. Like all it takes is, one guy getting on base, one mistake, and the game turns. So I do feel like that's when you don't notice even like the time issue of baseball. The games aren't super quick, but
Yeah.
they're tense, so they're interesting, so they're
You
keeping your
just
attention,
said the
so they're
magic
moving by
word.
quickly.
You said the magic word right there. The playoffs allows for the tension. It allows for the consequences. Every pitch can have consequences. That tension then basically it brings you right into the moment. Because where a regular season game is like, okay, you throw a strike, you strike the guy out here, okay, but it's a regular season game. It's 1 of 162. If your team is in the pennant hunt, obviously, and every game means something, well, then it starts steadily picking up. That year in 2015, when the Jays were making a run to their first playoff run in 22 years, the ratings started increasing as, oh, wait a minute, they might actually win the division. Playoffs? We're doing playoffs now? And that you could see the numbers started increasing quickly, and you started noticing it very dramatically because the Jays were always kind of like, yeah, they had a comfortable viewership, whatever. But then all of a sudden you were getting 1 million viewers. You were getting, 1.5 million viewers or whatever. And to put it in context, Canada is 1/10 the size of the US in population. So what if I told you 15 million? That's the equivalent of what we're talking about. Like 15 million people tuning into a single regular season game. The equivalent of. So all of a sudden, people in the country were like, "Wait a minute, I'm paying attention. You've got my attention here." And that's basically what happened. That's what it was. But it's because the tension started building. There were consequences. Every game suddenly meant something. And if you get that, it's hard to beat baseball for that because you can hit the nail on the head. And playoffs can still do that. It still means something, which is great. But the regular season a lot of times kind of loses that flavor. Unless you're just into a team, you're watching the team all the time, or you got players that you're watching. It's hard to get quite the same amount of attention. It becomes a second screen thing for folks like myself. Just putting it into one perspective versus another, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I understand that. You got 30 teams. There's going to be a lot of games that don't matter, and they're playing every day. And I mean, you get the same thing in every sport. Basketball is going to have a lot of games that kind of don't matter.
They've really made a hash of that too. As from their sport, they made a hash of that.
But they play half the games, and even the NFL. Like, there's a lot of bad NFL games. Teams, now they're playing 17 games, but I mean, that's why you don't hear as many complaints about it. But I've seen a lot of really bad football games, and you're like, why am I watching this? Like,
are you suggesting you're not sitting there at the edge of your seat watching every New York Jets game? Come on, Mike. Come on. Where's the love?
When you get some of those 4:00 games, like late in the season, and it's like, I don't like, just two teams that are just dreadful, and it's like, why is this game? But
fair enough. I agree. So one more thing, and then I'll kind of cap off a little bit into kind of the community stuff as well, because I want to kind of talk about that a little bit, as we wind her down a little bit. But it's been fun talking baseball with you. I enjoy it because I rarely get a chance to do it. In Canada, I'm mandatory required. It's only like because I've snuck it in. They told me I have to talk about hockey. Do you know what hockey is?
I do know what hockey is. I don't.
Okay, great. That's okay. That's our hockey content. We're done. That's all I wanted.
Follow it as much as maybe I used to. But.
That's okay. That's all I wanted. Just acknowledge the existence of hockey and they'll be satisfied. That's all I want, Mike. That's it. We're done. I don't care about hockey right now. I want to talk about other stuff. I talk about hockey enough. Believe me, I do. But that's always become the running joke on the live. It's like, well, it's like really Eric and stuff. It's like, do we really have to talk about hockey? Can I talk about some baseball for just a minute? We talk plenty of hockey. Okay, I'm required. It's mandatory. I will be deported if I don't talk hockey all the time. I got it. Thank you. But no, what I was going to say was obviously the Phillies. We talked about a lot of that and we covered that. But the other piece also is do you follow to the same degree? Obviously, it doesn't come up quite as much. So do you follow the Eagles as much? Philadelphia sports in general, or is it mostly Phillies and then the other ones kind of take a back seat a little bit? How does it fit in the pecking order for you?
Well, I'm actually not. So I'm a Phillies fan.
Sure.
I don't really consider myself a sports fan.
Okay.
I'm like baseball and football. Like,
okay.
I don't mind. Like, I know about basketball because I hear people talk about it. I'll watch like the Sixers, like with my buddies, like when they're in the playoffs. But like, I don't flip on the Sixers. Like, if they picked up and moved to Oakland, like I wouldn't care. And I could say the same thing about the Flyers. Now, I used to pay a little more attention to the Flyers, like. Okay. Back in the day. Now, like, honestly, I know nothing about them. I haven't really paid any attention. It's one of those things. Usually I would go to like a game or two a year with a buddy of mine who's a big Flyers fan. Football wise, so my dad was never into football at all. Big baseball. So I'm one of 6 kids. We all grew up going to Phillies games, watching baseball. Football, we kind of got in on our own, so we all just kind of developed into fans of different teams, and the only one who became an Eagles fan ended up moving down to like Baltimore, Washington area. So I actually became a Patriots fan. I was a huge Drew Bledsoe fan growing up.
All right, that explains from the videos I've seen that this explains a lot. For the record, Tom Brady, not my goat. Please continue.
Yeah, I'm aware. I've heard you talk about that.
Look, I make an excellent case. Brad is a big Tom Brady fan. I can make a case. Go.
But so obviously they had that crazy great run, not something you'd expect.
Right.
Obviously I see a lot of Eagles games, and I know a lot of people are Eagles fans. But the NFL is kind of weird. Like I've always known a ton of people who, for some reason, they live in the area and they're not Eagles fans. Obviously, the Eagles are incredibly popular, but like I've just always known people who are Washington fans and just fans from all over the country. It doesn't necessarily make sense. My brother's a Buffalo Bills fan. Like it's. But I think that
Where you are, that's a bit random. Like around here, I expect we've got 15,000 season ticket holders who are Canadian for the Buffalo Bills. So
yeah,
predominantly they're from the border towns, right? Southern Ontario, most of the time.
yeah.
So that makes sense. Like they're the closest team in proximity. That makes sense.
It's just weird. I guess because the way the NFL, like, I don't know. I don't think a lot of people grow up necessarily going to NFL games. I
Yeah.
mean, not that you don't sometimes get to go, but it's not like baseball is kind of the thing. Oh, you're going as a little league team. You're going with a group. Maybe your school's going. Maybe whatever. Maybe, I mean, there are a lot of deals for cheap tickets. So you go to baseball games in the summer, and that develops people into Phillies fans or even Sixers fans, whatever. And NFL, I feel like, has always been something where it's more external. Like, obviously, there's a big local fandom, of course, but I feel like it's a little more global in terms of access to TV and all that, and maybe even different players. So I'm definitely, in terms of Philadelphia sports, it's Phillies, and then everything else is kind of is what it is. It exists, but I don't pay a ton of attention to it.
No, that's cool. I was just kind of curious because it's interesting to see kind of how that works out. So what you described there is very much similar to the way the fandom works around here for the hockey team. Because obviously the expectation is, oh, you're in Toronto or near Toronto. It doesn't matter. So if you're in the suburbs, they consider you part of Toronto. It doesn't matter. But they say, oh, you must be a Leafs fan. It's like, well, where I went to high school, it was 50-50. There were 50% Leafs fans. Obviously, they have a strong contingent, strong fan base, no doubt. No, sports radio is filled with Leafs talk all year long. They're probably talking about it right now. It's in the middle of summer. It's hot as hell, and they're talking about the Leafs. That's what they do. But when I grew up, it's like, yeah, I was following Medano, and I was a Dallas fan. My buddy was a Colorado Avalanche fan, another one's a Detroit Red Wings fan. Like, and we would yell at each other because we were all in the Western Conference, so the teams would fight each other in the playoffs, and we would, argue over whose team was the best. And at that time, those were all good teams. So they were Leviathans, beating the crap out of each other. But it was 50-50. It was like you were a Leafs fan or you were a variety of possibilities. Like you weren't limited. Those are just some examples. There were a bunch. There was the New Jersey Devils fan. It's like, why? who likes New Jersey for anything? The National barely likes New Jersey. Possibly.
They get a great deal.
They get a great deal. But that's about it. That's the only reason you like New Jersey. But it was just interesting. That's why I was just kind of curious. I was kind of curious how that played into. So let's kind of we'll pivot her back over to the card bit a little bit. I want to talk some sports. I thought it'd be kind of fun. But okay, question that is kind of a curiosity for me. I think your intro is kind of interesting. I like a little song and everything, and I assume that's you playing, hitting the ball and everything. So what brought that about? What brought that about? What made you decide to kind of use that as the beginning of the MikeO videos?
I don't know. I think I actually created a few different ones at one
Okay.
point, and I used to rotate in different ones, and then
All
at
right.
some point, I just stuck with that one, and it's just old clip of playing some backyard baseball. And I mean, that's one of the things I have fun with collecting, and that's one of the reasons I like to do the team collecting. I mean, I like collecting vintage Hall of Famers. I like collecting current stars. I think it's fun to follow. I don't do a lot of like early prospecting, but once guys make the majors, like it's cool to pick up a few cards. And even if guys are in the division, I can appreciate the talents of Ronald Acuna and Juan Soto, formerly
Sure.
in the division. Like I like collecting and following various players from around, but like the Phillies being that team that I watch on a nightly basis, that I follow year to year and have a history with. And I can think back. It's kind of a timeline. That's one of the things about sports. It can be a timeline for your life. Like you can think of a year and you think of 93, you think of the Phillies, and then you think of kind of where you were in life, or 2008. Like I'll identify like different people I worked with or friends, like moments sharing, like when Matt Stairs hit his home run, I was with one buddy. In 2009, when the Phillies were in the playoffs, Jimmy Rollins had a walk-off hit to beat the Dodgers the game before they end up clinching the pennant. Like I can remember where I was watching it, who I was with, and then I remember like being outside. I took a walk because like I had like 3 different people call me and like had phone like, and that's one of the things that's kind of fun about collecting the team and different players and such. And some of the backyard baseball stuff at family parties and remembering family members. Like I remember my Uncle Bill, who at this point passed away like 10 years ago. Like he was
Mm,
pitching to
right.
us in that game and stuff. And I was there with my brothers and cousins. So I think that's an aspect that enhances collecting is thinking back on some of the memories. And that's why, you know, I like picking up some of those 90s Phillies guys because, you know, you have memories of that. You know, I can pick up Richie Ashburn's. I love collecting Richie Ashburn. Never saw him play. I do
Mhm.
remember him announcing
Yep.
when I was younger, of course, and his Hall of Fame speech and stuff like that. But I like collecting some of his old school guys, but I don't quite have the same connection as the others. So that's where that clip kind of came from. And, you know, family and memories and nostalgia and all that kind of jumbled into one. So
All right.
just, it felt like it fit in the videos. And, you know, I still get some people, you know, posting positive comments about it from time to time. So I just continue to roll with it.
I like it. I like it. Where did the song come from? Was that just a song that YouTube had, or was it like you
I
found it
think it,
somewhere, or what was the
I
deal with
think
that
I
one?
had it in like some CD. I had something like some audio clips that
Okay.
like I was able to. I forget. I like got them in some rights package like
Okay.
years and years ago, and I found it and I was like, oh, I could put this to use and like actually use it.
Nice. Well, it works. At this point, it's kind of like, yeah, that's the beginning of MikeO video. Even if I'm looking off, you can hear the song and then turn over and you see the clip, and yeah, that's the beginning of a MikeO video. So from that standpoint, at least it kind of like, yep, it differentiates, and this is very clear whose video we're watching as soon as we see the clip and hear the song. So that makes a lot of sense. I think that's good. Kind of playing off one thing you said there, though. Obviously, it'd be probably too difficult to pick one favorite, but I'm kind of curious. You got old, you got new, you got different ones that, to your point, you like to associate to a lot of different memories. Do you have a favorite? Let's use Phillies and maybe non-Phillies. Do you have a favorite Phillies card? New, old, whatever. Favorite because of the player, the memory it evokes, anything. It doesn't matter. The criteria is whatever you want it to be.
I mean, it's very difficult to ever narrow those things down because there's
Yeah.
so many. Like you got things like the '89 Tops Mike Schmidt. I think it's a great image. I love
Mm-hmm.
'89 Tops. That was one of the first packs I ever opened. Like I always loved that card.
Yep.
Like 1990 Donruss worthless card. Like Von Hayes.
All
Like
right.
that card I always liked just because I remember getting one in a Christmas stocking. Like when I
Fair.
was a kid. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but then I have like Allen and Ginter autographed Brad Lidge card. It's him celebrating on the mound after they won the World Series and
Mm-hmm.
was signed. Jack Scraff's a guy who used to do YouTube videos a lot. He would always go down to Philly spring training, get autographs. He actually got it signed for me, and I sent it in, got it slabbed by PSA. Like that's definitely a favorite of mine for sure as well. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just one of those things that invokes, you know, those memories.
I think it's fair. There's some good choices. That's kind of why I was kind of curious the angle you would take on that. Now, talking a little bit also about kind of community stuff and, obviously playing off the channel and everything. I know you and JT separately, you guys do different bulk submissions. So what actually led you to get into that? Do you still like doing it? Is it something that, you kind of do out of habit, or is it something you still enjoy doing it? What got you into it in the first place?
I remember I started out doing the PSA ones because there were a few people who were doing them and some guys weren't able to continue doing them. So I just
Yep.
started doing the PSA subs. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I want to continue to be able to get my stuff graded at a reasonable price. Of course, back then it was like $7, $8, nice and cheap. So I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh, I'll do some bulk subs. And then I was able to keep doing it. You build up enough, you spend enough, you were able to get enough of a break that you could give kind of everyone a break and do it. So I was doing that. And then PSA kind of changed, evolved, grew, got bigger, became more complicated, more difficult. So I actually, I was like, I just don't have time to do this anymore. And I kind of just reached out to JT. I know he was doing the card stuff,
Mm-hmm.
you know, full time. I was like, hey, here's an opportunity if you want to do it. I mean, it just gives you a chance to kind of help people out, build some trust, get some stuff graded. Maybe some people want to consign some stuff with you. Would you like to do it? He decided to take it on. So he took over the PSA stuff. And then I talked to people at SGC at the Philly show at some point. And I was like, hey, I do the PSA stuff, but I don't think I'm going to do it. And like, next thing you know, I started doing some bulk subs with them. And again, I just kind of started doing it just to be able to sub stuff myself at their bulk rates as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to doing, you know, straight through. So I still do it. JT does the SGC ones as well. I was able to get him involved in that. So I kind of turned over the Facebook group mostly to him. I'll
Hmm.
still post stuff in there and do stuff, but a lot of the ones I do are just kind of the same group of people. And it's not too complicated. I like doing it. I'm not as obsessed with having to get as many cards graded as I used to. I definitely went through
Hmm.
that phase of addiction of getting stuff graded at one
Sure.
point in time, and it was cheap, and it was like back before obviously things blew up. It was back. I mean, I know base cards have come down a little bit, but it was back before they ever went crazy. And I was like super like obsessed with looking things over. I mean, I had a crazy great gem rate, and then eventually I was like, all right, this just is nuts. I kind of took back my criticism of the cards and just said, if I send some in that don't get grades that are necessarily worth it, so be it. But
Hmm.
I still like getting things encapsulated for the collection. So I'll make use of some CSG stuff too. I think they've done a better job now with their slabs. I like it. So certain cards, hey, if I think it's cool enough to have slabbed and I can get it done for $15, why not? I would like to see SGC drop the price a little bit, but I'll still send stuff off. There's things that I want slabbed to the collection, and hey, if I could send it and get it back quickly, I'm thrilled with that as well.
Yeah, I think there's a use case for most of the main third party graders. I think there's a use case. I actually very much I like the CSG slab. If it's just a PC thing and the price is reasonable and all that good stuff, I like the slab. I like how the cards can look inside of the slab. It's pretty good. SGC, there's nothing wrong with them. A lot of vintage I'll pick up. I have no problem buying SGC, graded vintage. It can look really nice inside the holder. As much as I like to make fun of Baubles and give him a hard time because he's a box emitter, but like I said, it's glorified, one touch and you rip it out and it triples the price. That's what I like to mention. Take it out of the SGC and put it into a BCW top loader. Increase the value. But they all have uses. They all have purposes to me, and it's just finding the right tool for the job. Like it's not. I'm not gonna say like, oh yeah, this grader is better. No, no, it's whatever your preference is. Whatever makes the most sense to you. If it's too expensive, don't use that one. If you prefer this one, then use that one. If it's just PC, then use whatever you want. Whatever makes the most sense. Whatever makes you happy. Live your life. And that's always kind of the approach I've taken because grading is very fun, is interesting because people get very militant about it. That becomes like a
Oh
hot
yeah.
button topic. You push the button and they get into it, and that's always been kind of interesting. So let me touch on two things that we'll wind down on. So two things. One of them really light, really basic, and the other one a little bit more interesting because there's room for nuance and there's room for discussion on it because it's recent, but I'm kind of curious your take on it. First one, let's do kind of a light one. It's a fun one. You do get to watch a little bit of YouTube. I don't know how much you get to watch now comparatively to maybe before, and obviously you participate in the community. Any particular content creators you enjoy? You don't have to mention me 3 times. You don't have to mention Bob Lewis 3 times. It's fine. We understand. It's okay. But any that you enjoy what they make. You enjoy the way they approach it. Anything that catches your eye as far as videos and making it in the community.
I mean, it's certainly changed over the years. I feel
Sure.
like 5, 7 years ago, you could watch everyone and you
Mm-hmm.
could stay up to date as much as possible with a ton of people.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's just there's too many people making videos. It's impossible. There are people that I'm, good friends with it, and like obviously I try and watch as many of their videos, and if not all their videos,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes like you're just busy. My watch later list is currently because I hit the watch later list a lot. I currently have 2,739 videos in my watch later list.
Okay. So you're
So
like one of those email guys with like 5,000 already. I'll get to it. I'm getting to it, man.
well, the emails I'm pretty good at
Okay.
reading or deleting. But
Okay.
like,
Gotcha.
I literally hit it all the time, and I will watch stuff. I will go to my, subscription list and just click on it and watch stuff that comes out that day. Like I was watching a ton of John Mangini today,
I'm
and
going to get to
some
that. Thank you for mentioning it because I wanted to talk about that. But we'll get to that in
that
a minute. We'll get to that in a minute.
that was interesting.
Yes.
Um, and then I'll watch that. I will make use of the whatever the home button that just kind of suggests
Mhm.
stuff.
Yeah. Right.
And that's usually how I'll watch like non-card related stuff because
Mhm.
I'll watch some stuff
Mhm.
here and there, but a lot of times I am going through that watch later list. Like I'll click things, and sometimes I'll use it for the sole purpose of just bringing something up and all right, Filmington's got a video here, and then I'll maybe watch his video, and then I'll click on his channel and siphon through and catch up on a few videos I might have missed. So
Yeah. Well, his recent video said burn Tatis cards. You can delete that one. Get that one.
Yeah, it is his Tatis thing.
I
Who's
know. I put a little comment in there. It's like, so your advice is burn cards. I got it. It's fine. I'm with you.
so I'll do the best I can with keeping up with it because
Yep.
it's just time consuming now. There's so
Yeah.
many, and it's weird. I just go through phases. Like sometimes I will look for the shorter videos, watch
Mm-hmm.
them, comment.
Mm-hmm.
It's also at a point now where you do have access to smart TVs, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you have videos on while you're working on something else, so you're not going to maybe comment as much. So you're watching, but maybe not participating as much as you feel like you should.
Mm-hmm.
But I do, I like the lengthy videos too. Like I
Mm-hmm.
will put them on all the time, and I'll be sitting back at a table going through cards and just enjoying it. Like sometimes I want to hear the longer conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So it is, I don't know, it's interesting. And I like to seek out, as many collectors as I can, because some of the big channels can be fun and they have interesting, interesting things to say for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I learn more often from the channels that maybe not everyone is watching as much. So
That's fair. That's fair.
hard to bring out, mention too many individuals, I guess, off the top
That's a
of my
very
head.
good political answer.
It's,
I
it
like how
is
you
it is tough.
strategically worked your way around it. It was very, very well done. Very well done, sir. You still got a career in politics yet. I like how you did that. That's okay. So let me kind of, since you brought up the Mangini one, let me preface first. Let me preface first, and then I'm kind of curious your thoughts on it as well. I want to hear kind of what you have to say about it. I got a chance to watch some of his latest videos, and I think what I like about John Mangini is that he is passionate. I'm always going to lead with he's very passionate, and that plays into it. Sometimes that means he'll say some stuff where it's like, actually, that's wrong. Like, he'll throw stuff out because he's in the middle of a flow. He's saying,
Yeah.
and like, it's nothing egregious. It's one of those things where, like, he was looking, I think in one of the pieces he was mentioning how, PSA 10 isn't a perfect card. It's like, it's never been a perfect card. In the criteria, it literally leaves a little bit of room for off center and a couple of different things. And I think B Roth mentioned it to one of it. Like, oh, okay. And once he gets it, he adjusts. It's no problem. But he's very passionate, so he'll say, what he feels. I always preface by saying, I'm kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum. I love collecting. I enjoy the action. To me, it's the enjoyment of doing all this stuff. But I'm very laissez-faire as far as the hobby is concerned. So the reason I'm prefacing is I want to explain my take on it, and then I'm curious your other side of the equation, or if you agree, whatever. Laissez-faire means this. I don't care that Jeff Wilson is out there. I don't care that he says stuff. I don't care that some people follow what he says and other people make fun of what he says. I feel like both are appropriate responses depending on where you fall on it. I want to leave the viewer to make a decision. Basically, I'm putting the onus on you as the viewer to digest the content and understand what it is. If you're eating empty calories and getting fat and wondering what's going on, I can't help you. If you ask a direct question, maybe I can help you. But other than that, if you're making mistakes because you're digesting bad content, so be it. I'm not into yelling at the cloud and shaping my fist. It's like, no, because when you do that, and it's dangerous, and I think he did a good job trying to skirt it a little bit. He was trying not to do it. Like, he literally went out of his way trying not to do it. But when you complain about it too much, you're basically trying to tell people what to watch or how to collect without telling them what to watch or how to collect. It's like, yes, you don't like it. Don't watch it. And you're reacting to it. You're entitled to however you feel about it. That's completely fair. But it's like, if I told you how to collect, and I said the way you're collecting is wrong, you would look at me and go, who are you to tell me how to collect? It's my hobby. This is how I want to do it. If people want to follow that advice, and it's bad advice, I'm in the let them camp. But I've been at this long enough where I've made mistakes. I've made correct moves. I've made mistakes. I never look at somebody else and go, well, they told me to do it and I followed their advice and it didn't work out for me. I'm like I said, I'm on the opposite side of the scale. During the National, I was listening to some folks and say, oh, I talked to so-and-so and got, kind of their take on it. And I respect that. I have never made a card purchase and asked anybody their take, for better or worse, even if they know what they're talking about, even if they've been in the hobby a long time, because I'm like, I want to be the one to make the decision. Because if anything you say sways my decision, then I'm no longer fully responsible, even though I made the final call. I would rather make the call myself based on what I know. And yeah, it's great to ask other folks and get information. If you generally know nothing about it and they know and they're an expert, let's do it. But I've never felt like I'm in a position where I need to ask anybody else how to make it's the same thing as a comp. Like, oh, you're relying on a comp. Because JT talked about the comp piece, also kind of as a play off that video. And it's like, yeah, a comp is a data point. You don't have to agree with the data point. And his point was that sometimes the data point is egregious, it's incorrect, and it leads you to a bad thing, and you're just relying on it. I agree. But some people are going to do that. And that's okay. I'm sorry, that's allowed. The same way that you can price it whatever you want, and you can disagree with the data point that maybe is actually a good data point. You can say, no, I want to charge double. And you have the right to charge double. I don't have to agree with you. Do you kind of understand my point, though? I'm very like, guys, you can say no, you can say yes. I'm good with both responses, as long as you made the decision. And if you're mad about it, that's cool. If you're not mad about it, that's cool. But it's like, I give them carte blanche to make as much content as they want. I give you carte blanche to complain about it, but at the same time, it's like they have every right to make the video. You don't have to like it, but don't tell other people not to watch the video or they should. It's like, guess what? I agree with you, but they have the right to make it.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, what was that?
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Um, I mean, I kind of feel like I feel very similar to you in terms of I feel that way about the hobby, even like like the whole rookie card thing.
Mhm.
Like I have my thoughts on rookie cards and such, and like there's people who are crazy passionate about it, like
There.
Victor, the
Mhm.
rookie card specialist, of course,
Mhm.
and Eric. But I'm not going to get bent out of shape of like 2021 Bowman's best.
Mhm.
Like I just don't have that strong of a, I guess, like it's not going to bother me one way or another.
Well,
And
as a Brady fan, as you well know, 2019 is Tom Brady's rookie year. That's what we're going with. That's canon now. Victor, write it down. That's canon. 2019 is Tom Brady's rookie year. Please continue.
but so I find myself more and more enjoying a lot of the smaller channels
Sure.
and the people who have been collecting for a long time.
Yeah.
But I'm now at the point where I enjoy some of the big channels as well. I will listen to some of them and listen to their takes, and a lot of people will be up on the news. Um, and some of the brand new stuff coming out, like Neo puts out videos and Sports Card Dad and all these guys, like they literally put out videos every day.
Oh, I know.
And I maybe don't necessarily have time to look into those. So sometimes I'll flip on one of those videos and listen to what they're talking about, some news or whatever. Like for me, I know they're guys that haven't necessarily like. I'm not gonna go watch their videos to get their thoughts on, say, vintage or something,
Yeah.
but something brand new, some kind of brand new news. Like, I don't mind hearing their opinion on it. Sports Card Investor, listen, obviously he has a big team behind him. His videos look great. Like I'll from time to time watch something. I haven't actually watched any of his stuff from the National. That doesn't mean I won't maybe watch a few videos just to see what he was talking about and such.
Yeah, I do
But, like,
respect the video quality. I'll say the video quality on the editing job, from an aspirational standpoint, I don't have the time or the energy. But I
Yeah.
love the quality that they put into those videos very clearly. I do appreciate it from that perspective.
Yeah, for sure. But like, I don't know. I feel like I don't know. I'm not going to say I'm necessarily a big fan. I'm not going to watch him to influence me on what to buy.
Yeah.
But obviously, I understand why channels that are putting that much effort, money, time into it are going to get the big viewerships. That's just the way it is. I mean, you can kind of control how much viewership to a degree you get. I mean, I get this all the algorithm and stuff, but like if your aspiration is to grow your channel dramatically, it takes effort, and you have to maybe not make the content you want. Maybe you got to make the content that's popular right now. I mean, my channel grew a lot over the years, and it doesn't really grow anymore. I'm sure if I started doing videos saying top 5 players of this or that, or certain types of videos to try and push to get more viewership, I could. But that's just not what I'm personally interested in. But that's what a lot of people are interested in.
But if you did a top
But
5 Sotos, you basically get Ed to watch it 57,000 times.
that is
So that'd
true.
be pretty good.
Yeah, I might have to consider doing that.
That's not a bad call. Like, it's very niche. It's a very niche market, but he'll hit refresh a bunch, so that'll get your views up for sure.
No doubt about it. But like, I get his point. In terms of, I guess if you're a hobby veteran and you see like people pushing what you perceive as misinformation, like I understand why you're not gonna be all about that. But I don't know. To me, it is what it is. We kind of know the way the community, the YouTube world is. I mean, YouTube's not even really that popular anymore if you compare it to, say, something like Instagram, which I personally don't get. Like, I'm not a huge Instagram person.
Sure.
I'm on there, but Like I feel like that's way bigger. Um, but I also don't get like I still will buy into some breaks on occasion, not as much as maybe I used to because they're obviously so pricey and
Hmm.
all that now. I'm more into maybe doing a vintage set break from time to time,
Hmm.
but like I'm not into backyard breaks and all like that hoopla.
Hmm.
But I understand people are into it. They're getting into the hobby. That's what they know. They're going to jump into it and they're going to go kind of crazy about it and probably overpay for breaks. There's probably cheaper options out there, but people are paying for the spectacle of it, I guess. And I guess that's
Question for
just the
you.
way it is now.
Question for
Things
you.
have
Playing
obviously
on that.
evolved and changed.
Yeah. Just a question for you. Playing off of that though, and because I felt like a lot of the tenor, because like I said, and I'm going to reiterate, I like John Mangini's passion about it, and I like the responses that came off of it that were also very passionate. So I respect that. I respect all of the above. What I'm curious about though, and what is represented a lot of times by those videos, and I understand where they're coming from, but sometimes I sit there and I disagree, not in what he's saying, because I think what he's saying is fair. A lot of it is reasonable. Where I struggle with it a little bit because I almost feel like there's this um, reaction, visceral reaction, where we must protect the hobby. And the reason why I say the laissez-faire thing, the reason why I prefaced it that way, is I said I've never felt like, even as a longtime hobbyist, because I went uninterrupted from childhood till now, and I've been in this the whole through these different eras, the ups and downs and all that, and I've been consistently collecting the whole time. But it's like, let it, whatever's going to happen happen. You collect the way you want to collect. If you're saying that it should be about what you want to do, cool, do that. You want to collect vintage? Do that. You want to collect modern? Do that. You want to do box breaks? Do that. Sounds great. Are you saying it's too expensive? Fair enough. Like, I get you. Then find a niche that works for you, or take a break. But the idea that we have to constantly fix it, the idea that I don't like how this is going, it doesn't fit the way that I like doing it, therefore we have to fix it. It's like, well, the proof is in the pudding. The audience says you don't have to fix it. The audience says you're in the minority in how you perceive it because they're watching that, even if you don't agree with it. Do you get what I'm saying?
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's just that immediate reaction. People, put out some thoughts, and then of course, if enough people see it, and then people are going to react to it. And we've seen that different drama in the YouTube community over the years, and different things like that. There's like those immediate reactions, and then when you kind of remove yourself from it to a degree, you fast forward 6 months, and you're kind of like, do I really care anymore, or was that really that big of a deal? Probably not. I mean, things are going to evolve and develop the way they're going to evolve and develop.
Mm-hmm.
But like I get why people have certain reactions and they decide to put something out, and I understand why that kind of inspires people to then put out their thoughts on it or feel like they have to be defensive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
The inspiration I have no
it's
issue with,
weird.
Mike. It's
Yeah.
what's funny to me is that it inspires them to make videos and nothing changes.
Oh, of
It's like,
course.
well, you made the video, like, good on you, and people in the comments like, you're right, and I'm like, cool, so what?
Yeah, it
like,
doesn't.
I don't mean to be mean. I'm not trying to be flippant. But I'm saying, like, okay, cool, so what? What does that actually change? Nothing.
No, I think people make a video, they feel better about it for a little while, and they just do it for themselves. It's the same,
Yeah,
same reason people kind of do what they want to do, I guess. Putting out the videos they want to
yeah,
put out.
yeah. No, that's fair. I think it's reasonable. I just like I said, I wanted to get kind of your angle on it. I almost feel like sometimes I almost feel like, should I make a video about this? But I'm like, is there any way this will not come off as me like knocking? It's like, I'm not knocking the video. I'm saying make the video you want to make. That was the video you wanted to make. Cool. I just don't understand what the purpose of it was, other than being cathartic. Other than, okay, now I feel better. I vented and said my piece. Well, if that's what it's for, then fair enough. And the people that respond, if it's cathartic for you, as you said your piece, cool. I'm gonna be standing here going, okay, cool. And what did that change? All right, moving on. On to the next thing. Hey, let's go watch Sports Card Investor. Who's with me?
Well, after a few days, it will fade away, and it's just one of those things that you look back and be like, "Oh, remember when this video was made and it
Yeah,
got 20 people to get involved in making videos," which I guess is good.
I
It's
guess so.
good people watch it and make videos to a degree.
Mhm.
I don't think it's gonna make a big difference whatsoever, but that's the way kind of content is going now anyway. If you look at it,
Mhm.
that's you're gonna have a successful channel, and then you're gonna have channels that try and emulate those channels, and that's it's the way it is. And then someone else will come out, and a group of people will do that.
I agree.
There's, that's the joke. Like the hobby started in 2020 or the hobby started in 2018. People always say that. For
I,
some people, the hobby started in 1989 or 1975. Like everyone enters at a different point, and there's just a lot of people who are on social media who they did get involved in 2019, 2020, 2021.
mhm. No, I agree. I think that's very fair. So let me take you out on this one. First of all, a pleasure chatting with you. It was past overdue, and I'm very glad we were able to make it happen. And it's been a fun conversation. I've enjoyed kind of going through, traversing some of these kind of discussions with you. So a fun one to finish off with: buy, sell, hold. Fernando Tatis Jr. MikeO, what is your hashtag invest advice? What are we doing? Are we selling it? Are we buying? Are we holding? What are we doing?
Well, I think that is from person to person.
No,
No
but
doubt.
like,
Like,
I say it facetiously.
no, but
I'm poking fun at it.
I
But
do have some Tatis stuff that I got,
yep.
graded years ago, and just like it's just sitting there. Like
Mhm.
I sell some of it here and there. I actually sold a few cards. Shockingly, like someone literally, I had a card, pink refractor SGC 10,
Mhm.
his rookie debut from Topps Chrome,
Okay. Yep.
that literally sold like an hour before the steroid thing came down.
Really? Okay.
And the guy didn't pay for like 2 days after. And I was like, oh, he is never going to pay. And then he paid for it. And I was like, okay.
Really? Okay.
And it was like $190 or something, which, I was obviously fine with that price.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, I think, again, you're going to get the immediate reaction, potentially overreaction. Fernando Tatis at this point, in my opinion, kind of seems like a dope
Mhm.
in terms of immature, maybe a better word, but
Mhm.
signs a big contract, motorcycle breaks his wrist. Now he's got the steroid. Like he just missed a year of his career. But if you take the perspective, like guy's still 23, uber talented. If people are truly dumping his cards and you're patient, you could probably do well getting some decent cards at decent prices and selling them in the future. If you put a bunch of money in, you might be better off just holding it unless you really need that money.
Mhm.
If you don't like the guy and you just want to dump it, obviously sell, dump it, get what you can. Um, I would like to know, like, that I haven't really watched any videos from any Tatis collectors. I would love
Mhm.
to hear their thoughts on it. I mean, the bottom line is the guy's still very young. He's got a long career ahead of him, but it's certainly disappointing news for baseball fans out there. And hey, if you're dumping a lot of money in him, I can see why you'd be frustrated and disappointed.
Mhm. I agree. I think the angle that I took, because it came out not long. It might have been the same day that I did the live stream, the last one. Because we were kind of we were in the middle of talking about something, and then the Tatis point was brought. I think it was a couple of hours before the live stream came on, and the only thought I had at that moment was it's going to tank his market short run for sure. Um, it would be a gamble, and it's in the upfront. You have to say it'd be a huge gamble, but there is a universe in which, if his market tumbles enough, it becomes an enticing gamble. It becomes an intriguing risk if you're able to buy in low enough, buy something decent at like a low enough price. Where, okay, worst case scenario, you got a fun story. Best case scenario, he rebounds somewhat. Again, if he's able to play well going forward, if he doesn't get into any more trouble, if he doesn't run into any other issues. And the other piece that's kind of a baseball point as well is I think he's only 23, 24 thereabouts, something like that, I
Yeah,
believe.
he's awfully young for sure.
Yeah. If he's able to play a full length career, does the perception of the steroid guys improve over the next 15 years or so? Because if down the road some of the writers, the ones who were stinging on this die off, and the Bonds and the Clemens and a few of those guys start getting to the Hall of Fame on veterans committees and stuff, does that soften the view on the steroid guys in 15 years? Because that'd be kind of what you'd be looking at, projecting forward. Again, assuming he continues to play at a great level, comes back, actually plays, doesn't run into any other problems, and continues and plays well for another 10, 15 years, builds a Hall of Fame quality resume. Does the future look more kindly upon him at that point?
There's certainly that opportunity, and he has, I guess you'd call it, the advantage of being as young as he is. And like you said, if he plays a long time and well, like if he plays at the same level or matures and gets better for a period of time, I don't think many people are going to look at him the same way they look at the guys who are accused of taking steroids kind of in the prime or the latter portion of their career.
Mhm.
I mean, that is an advantage for him. But we'll see. I mean, like the San Diego Padres had a chance to be really fun in October, and they still do, of
Yeah,
course.
I think so.
Um,
Yeah.
and we'll see what next year brings. But like that Juan Soto, Fernando Tatis, two of like the big guys in the hobby world of baseball, but also two of the bright young stars in baseball together, and then Manny Machado, who kind of gets forgotten about in the hobby, but is really good in
Mhm.
the prime of his career. Like we'll see. I mean, you could take that long perspective of what goes on in 15 years, but you could also take the hey, Tatis is finally back
Mhm.
and he actually proves himself and maybe has a really strong year next year. Maybe the Padres go on some kind of crazy run. Maybe there's a chance for short term gains. I don't know. I don't
Mhm.
really buy cards that way. So you're
Yeah.
not going to see that top five, like, hey, top five Fernando Tatis cards you should buy if the market tanks by 75%.
Well, listen,
For
we already
me,
talked about the top
but
five Soto one is going to keep you busy. That's
yeah,
like
of
50,
course.
60,000 views. You got to focus, man. Focus.
But I think the Tatis news is obviously disappointing, and like
Yeah.
you said, it's a big risk. I mean,
Huge.
the injury. Like I get it. You're going to get hurt
Mhm.
playing baseball. You're going to get hurt in any sport. We've seen a lot of guys breaking their hands this year. Bryce Harper, Wander Franco, which has hurt Wander Franco's baseball card market because he just hasn't been on the field. Um, Ronald Acuna, knee injury, like it happened last year. Hopefully, he fully recovers. He's obviously back playing, but hasn't really been necessarily the same player to this point this year. Not that he can't get there, but like the off field injury is what's concerning, being a little reckless at that young age. And
Mhm.
then whether he took a steroid to get better, whether it was, for the worm that he described, whether it was the hair thing that his father described, like whatever it is, like it's obviously irresponsible
Yeah.
behavior. Like you gotta know what you're doing. Like the way baseball is now. You know that you're being tested. So there's definitely some red flags there for sure. For a player who I don't think at this point has even played a full 162 game
No.
season
He
combined.
got he got that big contract without actually playing a full season at any point,
Yeah.
which is
So
which is nuts.
So we'll see. I mean, certainly the San Diego Padres hope that he gets his stuff together because they got a lot of money invested in him, far more than any of the collectors out there that are upset that they spent $100 on one of his cards, and
Hmm.
now it's available for 50 or whatever.
That's right. And I'll leave it on this again. A remote possibility, but I've made very clear. I love chaos. Chaos amuses me. It entertains me. I would love it. For me, the best case scenario would be if San Diego went to the playoffs, made a run, and actually won a World Series, while Fernando Tatis is on the sideline. It's like, so did we even need Fernando Tatis? Could you imagine a scenario in which, well, the Juan Sotis guys, like all of a sudden your top five videos, 500,000 views, huge, huge, monstrous, but for Soto, that'd be huge. For Manny Machado, to your point, that'd be huge. For a lot of the other players on the team who are playing well, you have to play well in order to get them in that position. So if any of these guys are starring in that again, it's remote. But the Nationals in 2019 was kind of a fluke thing that just came together at the right time. Like stuff happens. It's baseball. You never know. So stranger things have happened. That team has a lot of talent on it. So if for some reason they ran the table and just whatever things clicked and maybe they got the right matchups leading in, and all of a sudden you got Fernando Tatis Jr. It's like, does that make him look even worse?
It doesn't help his cause.
for chaos purposes, Mike, I love this scenario. If for nothing else, for the chaos, is like, so Fernando Tatis, and he's missing 40 games next year. Oh no, oh no, no, no. It's not getting better. It's getting worse.
It can definitely bring on that chaos, and it would probably be the worst thing for him if the Padres went on and won the World Series. It wouldn't be good for him. I remember bringing that up to some Eagles friends, the whole Carson Wentz year when he
Okay,
was
yeah, yeah.
injured and Nick Foles won. I was like, if the Eagles win, like this isn't good for Carson Wentz, and
True.
things didn't go well for him
It's
after
true.
that. And hey, maybe he's just not as talented as people thought, or maybe it just got in his head, and it was like, how is he ever going to live up to what Nick Foles did that year, that postseason run? So that would be curious chaos in the future of Fernando Tatis if it happened. And hey, it may be remote, but that possibility exists. You get into the baseball postseason, you play well, you have two superstars that get hot at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, things can happen. I mean, the Braves weren't a favorite going
That's
into the
right.
postseason last year. The Nationals weren't a favorite in 2019. Like, teams go on runs all the time.
And we're
In
picking two of
baseball.
the last 3 years. So it's not like we're even reaching far back into the archive here. We're talking 2019 and 2021. Two teams that is like, would you have picked them at the start of the season? No, of course not. Neither one of those teams would you have picked the start. The Dodgers, for all their attempts, as good and talented and stacked as that Dodgers team is, the idea that they would win a World Series, well, actually, I kind of expect you to win a couple, like considering how talented that team is. But between bookending those two is like the Nationals and the Atlanta Braves. Really? Is Maddox still pitching? No, never mind. I wasn't expecting that one. That, to your point. But that's what makes it fun, though. I like that we've had a little bit of strangeness the last several postseasons outside of the Dodgers and the COVID year, which is no good on them. Fine, it still counts. I'll give it to you, no problem. But the other two were kind of fun because
Yeah, well, that was the one year. That's what was interesting that year because that was the year with the expanded postseason.
mm-hmm.
Everyone was like, "Oh, anyone can win this year." Like, what if this team that's under 500 wins? And that year you had Tampa Bay and the Dodgers, the 2-1 seeds, like the two
Mm-hmm.
teams that were the best team for that abbreviated regular season. So
Mm-hmm.
the most predictable year was the what was supposed to be unpredictable of seasons. So you never know. We'll see what happens this October. Maybe even I guess it's into November this year.
I think it might. Yeah, I think it might. I think the
World
schedule
Series
might
starts
really
pretty
into
late
it.
this year. So
It does. It does. Either way,
We'll
I'll be
see.
watching. It'll be fun. It'll. Like I said, I enjoy it. Look, as long as the Yankees get eliminated, I'm happy. Almost everything else is cool. Like I'm good. Just get rid of the Yankees, and I can accept any other outcome you bring my way. I'll accept it. It'll be fine. And that's just
Well,
me.
the way things have been going for them lately, it's been a little rough. So if the playoffs started today, they would not maybe be in the best of spots. But Aaron Judge has had a crazy great year, so
Yes,
it's been fun to follow that aspect of it for sure,
I
Yankees
agree.
wise.
I agree. So thank you, MikeO. The channel is MikeO, and I will include that in the description. You already know what it is. You're already watching anyway. But just in case, I will include a link in the description. MikeO, a pleasure. Thank you for joining me and hanging out and having a great conversation.
Thank you for having me, Carlos. Appreciate it, and thank you guys for watching.